There we go. And so we've got our squirrels. Everyone can make a little squirrel. It's our sign for squirrel. And what goes with squirrels? Trees, right? Trees and acorns. So we're going to do a tree. Your tree is rooted in the ground and the leaves are waving up high. We don't have any leaves anymore because it's the winter, but we had leaves waving just a little while ago. And then for forest, it's a lot of trees. And then I'll leave you with one more nature sign of owls. Owls are known for their big eyes. So got the owls. It almost looks like you're crying, but you're keeping the circles of your hands nice and open. And you're showing off those big eyes for nocturnal vision. So there's some nature signs for you if you ever want to do that. Okay, who am I handing this off to?
Thanks, Alana. That was great. Hi. Oh my gosh, Judy. Okay, great. So welcome. Wow, Kim. Welcome everyone who's just walked in. We are going to start with a land acknowledgement. So the Environmental Education Advisory Council acknowledges the land politically designated as New York City to be the homeland of the Lenape-Hoking, who were violently displaced as a result of European settler colonization over the course of 400 years. The Lenape are a diasporic people that remain closely connected with this land and are its rightful stewards. We also recognize that New York City has one of the largest urban Native American indigenous populations in the United States. And then we also want to add a water acknowledgement because we are on the Hudson River for the first people of the river. So the people have lived along the shores of the Hudson River since the last ice age, 10,000 years ago, bathing in its waters, living off its bounty, and caring for its future. The Lenape tribe balance the needs of humans and the needs of fish and fowl, plant and animal. The Lenape call the river Mohicantuck, the river that runs both ways. Before European contact, whales swam where the Manhattoes tribe lived. The Sinsink band fed off huge oyster beds that grew in bays. And the upriver swallows provided shad, sturgeon, smelt, and the crab for the Iroquois Nation. As environmental educators, we aspire to return the Hudson River in partnership with the original caregivers. Okay. So, welcome everyone to our 49th annual meeting. Just checking in to see how we're doing. It's been an eventful year. We've had a lot of great programs. We've had a lot of great steering committee members come on. We've had some mixer events and some great programming. We have a new logo, which you probably saw on the first slide. So that was a really huge deal. I think that was the first time the logo's been changed in over 20 years. There it is. We've had a whole revamp of the website as well, including a news blog. Those are just some things to kind of skim the surface of what's happened this full year. And we're going to talk a little bit about the steering committee. So here are the steering committee members, and your slide's different than my slide, Robin. So these are the EAC officers and members. And right now we have 5 committees, as well as the EE Projects Forum. And we also have a collaborative partnership with NYSOIA, New York State Outdoor Education Association. Right? And so people who are on this call and coming in, we have some steering committee positions open, such as the secretary. And then we have committees that we're looking for people to join as well. So a couple of the representatives are going to talk about those committees today with communications, programs, finance and fundraising, which Fran's going to talk about when she comes in, membership, and then again, the projects and partnership. So here are steering committee members, and that could be you right there at the bottom. And so we also want to acknowledge our offboarding steering committee members, Sarah Pigeon, Kara, oh my gosh, Carla, sorry, and Mike Zam for their service to EEAC. Their work has been unprecedented, and we hope that you will continue to be a part of the EEAC community, even just as a member, and participate. And you know, I think once a member, always a member. As they can look around the room and see some people who come, you know, I feel like EAC is a very, you come on the committee, you come off, you come on as a member, you come off. So I think my own being part of TEEP and then coming back and now being on the subcommittee, I think you're always going to be linked and tied to it, and that's a great thing. Okay. And so just checking in, we've got a good amount of finances in our bank for this year. Thank you to Fran when she gets here. We still do not have membership dues, which has been a great thing for this year. And our goal is to really look at some grant making, alternative revenue streams. And our goal is just to invest the funds back into the EE community. Okay. So this is our fun listserv, our famous listserv. We had a 19% increase in membership actually because of the no dues. And so we added about 47, a little bit over 47 members through the listserv. And the top 3 posts that we had were calls to action, so activist posts, policy making. We had a lot with the Climate Change Education Act, which I know that Shino is going to talk a little bit about today, and has been prominent in our work. Job postings, just had a couple. I know there's some open at Solar One if anyone is looking. And then professional learning opportunities. We had a great retreat. We had a mixer. We had a nice let's see, a couple events, which Robin's going to talk about when we get to that later. So speaking of, I'm going to hand it off to Robin Sanchez.
Hi, everyone. I'm Robin. Oh, we can let them in. I'm Robin Sanchez. I'm the programs chair since last January and vice chairperson. And so we had some exciting programs happen this past year. We were able to host the 6th Projects Forum with the Environmental Education Projects Forum group, especially Mike Zam, who helped lead this. And so we had 2 meetings, February and March. We had a great turnout, and we got some really great ideas out of it. And since then, we've started to work on a new project called the How Things Work Conference, which Ray Poltinas has been helping us lead. So there will be some great opportunities to get involved in that in the coming year. And we also had a social event at Solar One at their new site in Long Island City, which was a beautiful facility. We got a chance to see where they do a lot of their hands-on education and training. And then we co-sponsored and partnered with Nizoia and NISMIA over the summer for whale watching. And we're hoping to do a few more events with them in the coming year as well. So what do we have coming up, at least for the first quarter of first few months of 2024? We actually started a fall/winter book group. All We Can Save is the book that we've been reading. We've had 2 sessions already. It's been really nice. It's a no shame book group. So you can definitely join us for the second 1 or 2 if you'd like sessions, as as you'd like to join us. And those are coming up in January and February. They're on Zoom. And then, like I mentioned, we're working on the Projects Forum event, which is the How Things Work conference. And that'll be taking place on Tuesday, March 5th at City College. A few of you in this room have been helping us with the planning. We typically hold meetings on Monday afternoons every other week. If you're interested in getting involved, it's a great event. We really want to help youth connect with our organizations and understand how infrastructure and systems in New York City work as a way to understand how to prepare for the risks and events that come with climate change, and think about careers, green careers, and all of the work that we do. So this is a really great event that's coming up. But a big question from us is your organization interested in co-hosting any events with EEAC in the future? Definitely let us know. There will be an exit ticket at the end of today, and you can share any interests with us. Okay, additional updates. I'm gonna offer this to Alana to maybe share a couple quick updates, and then we'll get into our next segment.
All right. So, hi everyone. I am trying to revamp our social media. There are these little cards over here. If you do cool things and you want the EE community to hear about it, fill out one of these. If you're hiring, if you want to highlight your organization and the amazing work that you do, you want to shout out a coworker and the amazing work that they do. If you want to just shout out cool New York City nature that you think people should know about, let me know and send some good pictures so that I can put it on our social media. And if you post environmental ed things on your personal social media, feel free to tag us on Instagram and Facebook. And there will be something about this on the exit ticket as well if you're joining us virtually.
Thanks, Alana. All right, Dan.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dan Taino. I'm on the EEAC steering committee, and I currently work at New York City Parks. But in my environmental education career, I've been all around, and everywhere I've been, Shino has been there, whether it be from the Environmental Education Expo or tours of green infrastructure all around New York City. So I'm here to introduce Shino. Shino's the executive director of the New York City Soil and Water Conservation District. She has a Master of Science degree in Marine Environmental Sciences from the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences at Stony Brook University. As executive director, she oversees the district's stormwater and green infrastructure, environmental education, and urban soils program. She currently serves on the steering committee of the Stormwater Infrastructure Matters Swim Coalition, advises the leadership team of the New York, New Jersey Harbor and Estuary Program Citizens Advisory Committee, and serves as the New York co-chair of the Harbor Estuary Program Water Quality Working Group. She has also been involved with diversity, equity, inclusion and justice work through the Harbor Estuary Program subcommittee, as well as her own diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice programming for the district and its partner organizations. So I'll pass the mic to Shino. If you're on the Zoom, you can put questions in the chat as well, and we'll relay them to Shino.
Thank you so much. I'm going to have to do a little switcheroo. Give us just 1 second while we switch the slides. Being shared. Excellent. Okay, thank you. I'm going to stand here because I realize this podium doesn't show you what you're showing, which is sort of a flaw. Anyway, good evening again. My name is Shino. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm just going to get started on this, what I hope is some kind of a message, but I'm not really sure. I really struggled putting this presentation together because I think I was trying to put in too much in 20 minutes. So I'm going to do my best to make a story out of hopefully a lot of different things. I'm going to start with a little bit about myself. I have many hats I wear. I deliberately didn't put my logo for the New York City Soil and Water Conservation District on any of the slides because that's not what I'm here for or with. But I do want to share the hats that I wear. So as Dan said, I am the executive director of the New York City Soil and Water Conservation District. I am also an environmental educator with the Soil and Water Conservation District, but also as a volunteer. I have helped out with schools in sort of voluntary capacity, taking students on field trips and whatnot. I'm also a public school advocate. Currently, I'm serving on the New York State Board of Regents as the Manhattan representative. But beyond that, I have been a public school advocate for the last 20 years, fighting for school funding, fighting against privatization, wasteful contracts within the DOE, parental involvement, parental engagement, on all those wonderful things. So that's another hat that I wear. And somewhere along the way, I've actually sort of became a social justice activist as well. I've taken a lot of anti-racism courses. I've been doing a lot of learning on my own. And I started giving workshops. So this June, back in this room, I was leading a workshop on power dynamics, which has a lot to do with your social identity and how those play into your interactions in workplaces. So I'm starting to do some of those types of workshops as well. And then I'm a mother, I'm a wife, and I'm a daughter and granddaughter, sister, and all the other things. So these are all the hats that I wear, but I'm going to focus on these four that are sort of disparate at the moment, although I'm trying to find connections. So that's my day job, New York City Soil and Water Conservation District. We do a lot of different things. We actually hosted the Environmental Education Expo in this room last week, and I saw some of you there. And then I do education policy partly as the Board of Regents, as a Manhattan representative, but also a lot of my activism in the public education arena is just purely as a volunteer activist without any official affiliation. And then for social justice work, I do work as a part-time contractor to a couple nonprofit advisory or consulting firms. So these are the two that I'm currently working with, doing a series of anti-racism workshops or diversity inclusion workshops. So the three separate spheres in my life right now are the environment and education and social justice. I've been trying to merge the three a little bit more because I feel like I'm leading this triple life with triple identities. And, you know, there is a connection, but they're not quite melding yet. So this is what I'm trying to do, is to really integrate these three spheres of my life. And I'm actually finding opportunities. And thank you for having me, because this is one of those opportunities where I actually can share some of my thinking around how those three spheres connect. I also had the opportunity to talk at the Climate Resiliency Education Task Force meeting, which is how Fran reached out to me and tapped me for this presentation today. And there's also the New York, New Jersey Harbor and Estuary Program, which has been doing a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion work. So I'm starting to merge some of those concepts together here. One of the things that I've learned doing this work is we need to really think at the systems level. So the conventional thinking in the world out there, not so much anymore, but it's still out there, that you have to think about the planet, the people, and the economy, right? This is what people call the triple bottom line. Well, I reject this notion, and I'll hopefully convince you to reject this as well. This is an ad from the 70s, some of you know. This is where the whole notion of individual responsibility for environmental issues came about. But if you look at it, this was put together by Keep America Beautiful Inc., which is a part of the Ad Council. They're out there to make money. So that's one thing we should remember. And pollution, should I remember this? People start pollution. People can't stop that. Now, it's true that we all have a responsibility to do what we can as individuals. I started thinking though, there's all these bigger scale environmental ills out there. What can I do about deforestation as an individual action? Stop using paper? But I'm just one person, right? And I'm thinking about climate change. Well, this is New Orleans, by the way, Katrina. Whole neighborhoods flooded, and there are so many different impacts from that. And what is my individual responsibility in that? What can I do as one person? And there are all these other big scale problems. That's the landfill. We're all very familiar, strip mining. These large scale problems just feel so daunting. And there is a lot of greenwashing too, I noticed, right? There are corporations putting out green products, this and that. But it feels like in the end, they're out there to make a buck. And I'm not sure what I can do as an individual to stop that. Greed is really a big problem here. And that's what I started noticing, is that this is a greedy system, this capitalist system. And there's this worship of the economy, right? People are serving the economy. That's how this capitalist model is working right now. But that's not really how it should be. Economy is there to serve the people, not the other way around. Yet the current system we have is the people serving the economy. So we work 70-hour weeks, make whatever we can, and spend all our money on stuff we don't need or stuff we do need, which costs too much money. So I started really thinking about systems level issues in the environmental and climate change world. And then I came across this book by Joseph Stiglitz, who I think is a Nobel Prize winner in economy. He's an economist. And he actually quite clearly puts this concept out there that the current economic system is not meant to serve the people, and it is leading to degradation of the planet, but also societies at large. So that was a good book for me to read, just to try to start to form ideas in my head more clearly on the connection between the environmental problems and the capitalism. So my thinking right now is that there are only two bottom lines here, not triple, two. People and the environment, simple. And one could actually say the planet is people and all the things that live in it and all the non-abiotic things that we rely on. So there really is only one thing that we have to worry about. And the economy is there to really support the people. It cannot be a goal, one of the three goals. It cannot be one of the trinities that are so sacred. There are only two things that are really, really important. And we have to shift the mindset to think about the economy as something that supports our well-being as collective humans. So the solutions cannot be rooted in capitalism, which is why with all the recycled papers and soy-based inks, we're not making progress, because they're still rooted in that capitalist thinking. And Audre Lorde said this best, and she wasn't referring to the capitalism, she was referring to liberation of Black people, but she said, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. Capitalism is responsible for the state of affairs we see right now, the state of the planet, climate change. All that was brought on by capitalism. So whatever solution we come up with cannot be based on capitalist thinking. Now, I'm not saying I have an alternative, but this is, I think, the first step in thinking about different solutions and thinking about where we need to go as the human species. So the limits of individual actions, I want to just explore that a little bit, because there is such a thing as manufactured demands, right? Plastic water bottles. We have them not because the masses of people said we need plastic water bottles or water that comes in plastic bottles. That's not how it happened. It was big corporations thinking, okay, we got all this petroleum and we're not using as much petroleum now. We got to come up with something else. Let's start making plastic. What can we put in the plastic we create? Let's put water in there. People need water. Manufactured demand is a real thing. Designed obsolescence, we all know. How often do we have to buy a new computer or a new phone? There's absolutely no reason why your computer couldn't last 10 years or your phone couldn't last 5, 6 years. They're designed to die after so many years, right? So we think about consumer power and we can boycott products and make manufacturers or companies do things differently. While it could work in some instances, the system is too big. They're just going to go ahead and create a new product and make us believe we really need them. So we need to be aware that consumer power is limited. Really need to change the system itself, which means policies and laws. That's really what we're talking about. And this is one realization I had. I was vacationing in Maine one summer, and I was trying to avoid flying because that's what we're supposed to do as good environmentalists, right? So one summer I said, you know what? I'm not going to fly, but I drove. But then after that, it occurred to me, it's like, well, the plane that I would have taken still flew. Either, whether I had a ticket on that plane or not, that plane flew. And my renting a car actually put extra carbon dioxide into the atmosphere because I actually drove a car that didn't need to be driven. And that's when I started thinking, okay, well, we shouldn't fly, but the only way to make a real difference is if hundreds of thousands of people decided not to fly from New York City to Maine on that same day. But that's not going to happen. And it hasn't happened. We've all been talking about, let's stop flying, let's drive less. And yes, things are getting better because we're at least aware and we make better choices about things, but that is not enough. And really, it was Judith Enck, who's a former EPA Region 2 administrator, who's now running an organization called Beyond Plastics. She said it best. So individual actions, I'm not knocking it down. We need to do these things because we need to socialize ourselves with different way of living, but we're not going to recycle ourselves out of this plastic mess that we have right now. You can recycle all you want, but we're still going to have the problem we have. It's not just individual action. That's where you have to come in. You have to think about the systemic change of extended producer responsibility, EPR, right? That's a responsibility we're putting on the plastics producers for managing used plastics. Rather than putting it on the consumer and the environment, companies that produce plastic has to take care of used plastics. That's the concept. And that is something that the folks are really pushing for. And hopefully we'll get a real strong extended producer responsibility law passed. The one that made it pretty far, I think, was watered down. So we need to be careful what we pass. But this is the kind of policy change we need. The plastic bag ban, that's a legal mandate. And while there's still a lot of plastic bags out there, but those are the policy changes we need to implement at the systems level. So what do we do? Well, you are already doing it. Education is system change in my mind, right? We're generating the next generation of people with the new ways of thinking, new ways to look at things, and educating them about what we're doing with the environment, why we need nature, why climate is important, all the wonderful things that we teach our students, and some of you do adult education too. That is the work. So I think it's great that we're in this space sharing this together because we are doing the work of changing the world by educating. But let's get into the little bit of a detail of how else we can think about changing the systems. For education at the systems level, there's the federal law, right? Accountability system, it's the Every Student Succeed Act, is the one that we have, always also known as ESSA. That ESSA accountability system really puts a lot of focus on ELA and math test scores. We're starting to shift away from a little bit of that test score driven accountability system, but it's still there, right? The law still says students from 3rd to 8th grade must be tested annually in math and ELA, and also in high school, at least once in ELA and math. So that kind of policy actually waters down the curriculum in so many ways. Yes, we can actually incorporate environmental education into ELA and math, but we're still in that framework of what is not tested is not going to be taught in the classroom. So we have to think about what we can do at the federal level to really start to include and incorporate environmental education concepts. How can we do that, right? And we don't want to just make it, okay, so everybody has to be tested in environmental science. That's not the solution. But acknowledging that federal accountability system can be an impediment to what we're trying to do is a good start. So environmental education, critical thinking, and civic engagement, these things are really not the priorities right now in the federal accountability system. So that's another thing we need to think about. How do we change the federal accountability system so that these skills and content knowledge are really what matters, not just standardized test scores. At the state level, legal mandate or legislative action is definitely one way, and that's what the climate folks are doing right now, right? Climate education. There are bills in both houses at the state level. Definitely support that line of action there. We also had for a while, No Child Left Indoors. I'm sure Kim remembers. We're trying to do some, with this was a reaction to the No Child Left Behind law, but we wanted to have outdoor environmental education mandate, right? And I think it would be actually good to try to bring that back at some level, in some shape. But something we should consider, there are 700 plus school districts in New York State. That means there are 700 plus school boards, and school boards are the ones that actually select curriculums. The state education department does not mandate curricula. That's up to the individual school boards. And there are 700 school districts in New York State. That's a little bit messy. And there are already many mandates that are not being met. If you look at the section of the law where the climate law is going under, there are so many other mandates. And actually, physical education is a mandate too, but I know a lot of schools that are not really doing physical education at the level they're supposed to be. Arts education is another one that's being gutted. A lot of schools are just not doing art at all, or just one visual art class a week. That's a travesty. And that's also required. So just because you succeed in putting it in the law, requiring every school to teach environmental education or climate education, we can't stop there. But we have to make sure, one, that there are good curriculum out there, and two, the school district actually chooses a good curriculum, and three, teachers actually teaching them. So this legal action is just the first step of a long process. And it's really actually astounding how many things are mandated to be taught in schools and yet are not. But there's no true accountability system. And it's not like if school doesn't teach XYZ that are mandated, the school's going to lose funding, right? And politically, I don't think that's ever going to happen. So we'll have to come up with a different way of ensuring whatever is mandated by the state law is taught. And part of that is teacher preparation. Right, we have to really focus on teacher preparation programs so that the teachers who are coming out of the education schools are equipped and passionate about teaching environmental education and climate change. Competing interests is something we should be aware of particularly when you start lobbying for the climate education bill. Just be aware there are groups pushing for Black studies, ethnic studies, and there are a couple other efforts to try to mandate certain pedagogy, but certain contents under the state law. At the city level, we have mayoral control of the school system. That means the mayor makes all the decisions. Well, it's either the mayor or the chancellor, but the chancellor is selected by the mayor, so it's essentially the same thing. It's one person making all the decisions for 1,500 schools in New York City, 1 million students. That, to me, is a problem that we should be thinking about. And actually, the state is actually starting to look at how mayoral control has not been serving or has been serving students in New York City. And there might be a new governance system in development. That's something, just a little background. But this could be the systems level change that can bring in a lot of different things, including better environmental education, better teacher development, better support for teachers. All those different things can come together under the school governance system. We're talking about long-term here because mayoral control is not going to change next year or year after, but something to think about. The role of non-governmental organizations here is huge. You all are doing that work already, and I'm really grateful that you do the work you do because it's not happening in the public realm. And your government too, and doing this work too. Thank you, Robin. And parks folks too. But it really is important that we all come together to do the work of environmental education and climate education in our schools, because the Department of Education isn't necessarily doing that. So you offer programming resources for teachers, you offer professional development, on all those things are really important, but also let's build relationships with city council members if you're not already doing that. They can become advocates for what we are trying to do. And city council members have some discretionary funding as well to do some of your programming. So those are good things to do. And removing barriers for teachers, that's important too. Not sure what that could look like, but whatever barriers teachers have from doing environmental education in the classrooms, some teachers just simply don't have any resources to buy materials to do classroom or field trips, right? Never mind buying materials, they just don't have any resources to take kids outside. Sometimes it's the principal who really doesn't want teachers to take kids outside. I've heard plenty of teachers complaining about, my principal doesn't want me to take my kids outside, even if it's a neighborhood walk. So try to think about how we can actually remove that barrier. Maybe it has to be a leadership training for principals on the importance of outdoor education, how students actually behave better when they have outdoor time, how students can actually learn better when they have a little bit of outdoor playtime. There's plenty of research to actually support those claims, and maybe that's what we need to do with school leaders so that teachers can actually do the work. As one of my favorite scholars, thinkers said, and a rebel and a liberatory person, Paulo Freire said, all education is political. I love this quote. Oftentimes, people will say, well, education isn't political. You shouldn't get political. But in fact, it is. It always is. It always has been. And it always will be until we create utopia where we're really living in harmony and all that beautiful stuff. But all education is political. I'm telling you this not so that you don't shy away from becoming political. I think it is important. Yes, there are regulations and boundaries that you have to be aware of, but know that it's important to get political because you do need to change the system, and that means getting political. But it's not just the system, right? We can conserve water, we should be planting more and and we should be recycling. All these individual actions are still important because we need to get comfortable with this way of living, recycling, conserving water, and planting more trees, or whatever else that we can do as individuals. Those are still important, and we need to continue to do them. But there are also a couple other individual actions that I think are very important. One is voting. This is another systems level change that we really have to think about. Let's put people in office who are going to move us in the right direction. And this is one of the most important individual actions that I think we should all be taking. The other thing is learning. You as an individual should be learning. And, oh, what is that cute person? Love it. And what do I mean by learning? Well, it could be anything that you want to learn about. But for myself, the learning for, all right, I'm repeating myself. Vote, it's important. This is one of the most significant ways to change the system, right? We need to have lawmakers and policymakers who are going to do what we want them to do. So New York City Council and citywide positions are important. We also need to think about the New York State Assembly, Senate, and statewide positions. 2024 is a state election year. Primaries are in April, I believe. We have to think about that. And the federal level, House of Representatives and Senate, President of the United States, it's coming up soon. We really need to pay attention, and we got to get the vote out. So the other part of learning, self-learning, developing critical lenses, that's what I have been really focused on. And these are the books that I've read that connected some of the dots, the environment, people, and social justice spheres. The 1619 Project is great. It's an amazing book. It has so much information, and it really contextualizes the history of this country, slavery, and the connection between slavery and capitalism. And that was an important learning for me. And then An Indigenous Peoples' History of the United States is another phenomenal book that makes a clear connection between genocide of Indigenous people, displacement of Indigenous people, and capitalism, and military, and the police. All those things are connected in this book. And How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi. It's a great read, fast, and he makes a very clear connection between capitalism and racism. He actually calls them the conjoined twins. And this one I just finished by Bell Hooks, Killing Rage, written in the 80s. So some of these concepts, the connection between capitalism and racism, that concept has been around since the 60s, actually. Black Panthers talked about it. But of course, they've been marginalized, they've been silenced. So we are thinking, wow, this is sort of a new thing, but it's not. It's been around. It's just, it hasn't quite been given the platform clearly for a reason we know. But she uses the phrase white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. And that pretty much sums it up for me. And again, it's a book that makes a really compelling case of why those three isms are connected. So what I do every day, try to do it every day, is I try to question my assumptions. Who has the power? This is a good analysis. Who has the power in a particular situation? Who's making the decisions? Who benefits? This is also a good one too. Particularly when we're talking about environmental policies, we have to think about who's going to benefit from this particular policy change. That can lead you to a very interesting place. Whose narrative is it? Whose story is being elevated? Whose story is being sold? Whose story is missing? These are the questions I try to ask myself often. And that's the end of my presentation. I hope I said something that resonated with you. Sort of all over the place, but here is my email address. I am giving you my work email address, even though I'm not doing it as my work hat, wearing my work hat, but my personal email is sjuryqueen@gmail.com. So feel free to reach out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shino. That was great. So we have a little time for some questions. I remind people that are on the Zoom that you can put your questions in the chat and we will ask them to Shino. But I have a question to start out and jumpstart us. So a lot of us, me, it come from a background of education that was pushing for personal change or sometimes community change, and sometimes that eventually got to legal or systematic change. Take the compost collection, which is very watered down from what we'd like to see. But are there any ideas you have for us as educators to transition into more climate justice and systematic change education?
So I think when you're working with your students, you should include systems level analysis. So if we're talking about, let's say, recycling, this is an easy one. We should absolutely tell people or students that recycling is something we should be doing, but we should also be talking to them about how we came to the place we are now with plastic everywhere, right? And Beyond Plastics has all the resources, and Story of Stuff also has great resources that tell you how we got to where we got to. And I think telling that piece of the story is also very important, and just making sure students understand individual actions are not enough, that we need to change laws. And yes, there are students who are not voting age, but they can still write to their legislators, right? And I think that kind of action is really powerful. You teach them, here are things that your lawmakers are doing. Ask students to write them letters. So I think there are ways to incorporate individual actions, but also tie into systemic change by really just making them understand how these things operate at the systems level. I hope that was good.
I have one more and then I'll let open it up to everyone else. So there's been a lot of momentum, especially with maybe high school age, now college youth for climate justice. And is there any part of that that you've been able to tap into? And where do you think we as educators can continue to improve our focus in capturing that?
So to be honest, I haven't been closely following what they're doing, but I believe in the power of young people really taking their power and taking charge of an initiative. And my role then, when young people step up to do something, start to take action or create a campaign, I step away. I step back, right? I let them do the work. I will support them and help them when they need it, but I try to really stay out of their way of their activism. And it's not easy to do because, I know what I know. I've watched my kids do things like, that's not really how you do things, but I just have to bite my tongue and just let young people discover on their own. And they actually know a lot more than I do in certain areas. So I respect their knowledge and I stay out of the way and I help them when they need it. Yeah, I think nothing worse than unsolicited advice. Never received well by young people or old people. So
Thanks. Do we have any questions in the chat? Okay.
Yeah, I'll share the slide. Oh, wait, hold on. We're supposed to like ceiling mic.
Oh, nice.
No, no, that should work.
Just wondering what advice you can give or thoughts you can give of how we can come together as a community to support each other to think more deeply. I feel like I know that my work becomes very siloed in the day to day, and there's so much like expertise amongst this community, but we're all scrambling for resources and trying to just make do. And I know that maybe now a team of one, you know, so just like how can we start being that change as a community to start bringing these kind of deeper analysis together and kind of hold each other to that?
Just turning the ceiling mic off. I think you're already doing it. You're doing a book club, right? I think that's a great opportunity. So after you finish the book you're working on now, then you can move on to a different book that could actually address some of these things. And that to me is a great way to start that conversation and create a community. And nowadays with Zoom, not that, you know, I want to spend my free time on Zoom all the time, but Zoom does allow people to come together more easily. You don't have to travel. You don't have to look for space. And you can certainly have conversations on Zoom. So I would encourage you to start meeting up on Zoom. And then down the road, you can find a space to meet. But I think it does create that ability to meet more spontaneously. But book clubs are great. Okay.
Shino, can the current Board of Regents be moved to support climate change education?
So we have some members who are very strongly in support. The rest of them, they probably would, but it takes people reaching out to them and having conversations. And I mean, trying to help the group meet with the rest of the regents, but I can only push them so far. So I hope they understand this, but they're also dealing with other initiatives from other groups as well, right? So there's a group of folks who are really pushing for ethnic studies the same way the climate education, put it in the law, mandate it. There are a couple other that type of initiatives happening. So just be aware that they're, I don't want to say competing interests, but I would just love to see some kind of a conversion of these efforts, because we're all trying to mandate necessary knowledge in public schools, right? It should be, ethnic studies should also be required. Climate education should be required. And I would say environmental education more broadly should be required. So if we can find a way to just build a coalition to push for all these things together, that's what I would love to see. But in the end, legislature doesn't really listen to the Board of Regents. So yes, it would be helpful to have Board of Regents on board, but I think you really need to hit those legislators and the constituents of the legislators who are key members.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, this is Mike Zam.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, Shino, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I just wanted to double back on or reinforce what Emily Spano just sent, that there is a very important piece of legislation that the Climate Resilience and Education Task Force has put together, which the state Senate is a bill, and she just sent out the link with the bill's number and all of that. But we all should contact our state senators to support that bill. It's got several really important planks in it, including teacher education, and we should all support it. So please contact your state senators, and I guess you can get the Emily, if you're there, you can send out the bill, the number of the bill and all that.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I put a link in the chat for our toolkit for action at cretf.org/policy, but the bill number is S278A, and it was co-written by high school students. So S278A in the Senate and A01559A in the Assembly, but it's all that is in the toolkit, so for easy access. And I put the link in the chat. Thanks so much for lifting that up, Mike.
Right.
Thank you, Mike and Emily.
No problem. Thank you.
If you work with the Department of Education, either through a contract or just offering professional development, I think that's where the conversation needs to happen. With the teacher prep programs, I feel like I should put Tanya on the spot. But it's hard to get climate education integrated into teacher prep program, I feel like, right? It would be great if we can do that.
Can I respond to that a little bit?
Yeah, please do.
I think that it's really important that we try to move on that. One thing I would say, EEAC does have a syllabi bank with 10 courses from 4 schools that are aimed at to be put into teacher preparation programs, and the courses have been downloaded by schools all over the world, over 3,000. So, but not too many in New York State. We have a problem with the colleges of education in our state. They don't respect. I mean, if you go to a website of, let's say, McGill University in Canada, the teacher education program is full of environmental and climate change. You can't miss it. It's right there up front. You go to most of the schools in New York State, and you can't even find it. It takes you a half hour to find whatever they're doing on environmental stuff. There are some exceptions, but not too many. So we really need to work on our schools of education here in the state. So I would encourage anyone at the meeting to, if you graduated from a school in the state, go back to the school, find out what they're doing, and tell them to go to the EEAC syllabi bank, and they can download some of the courses. Or if they're doing stuff, have them submit a course to the syllabi bank. We want to get more schools involved. We only have 4 schools: NYU, Bank Street, Cornell, and City College. We need to get more. Okay, that's it.
But also, if we succeed in climate education bill being passed, then that's going to usher in, hopefully, a way for the teachers need to be educated and prepared for this. So if that law passes and signed, the bill passes and signed into law, I would think that some of the teacher prep programs will start to include climate education in their teacher prep curriculum, because how else would teacher coming out of the system know how to teach this stuff? I mean, they should if they're getting science education, but I think that's what another area where we should think about. We have science teachers, we have science standards, K through 12. We should find a way to just embed climate education into the existing standards, right? And somehow make it more interesting and easier to teach for teachers so that they will start to do that. And I think there is a way to do that. teachers do struggle with meeting standards in science as well as in other areas. But if we give them the tools of, if you teach it this way, then you're hitting these learning standards. And this has always been the argument, right? Whatever we come up with curriculum or lesson plans, we always tie it to learning standards. And I think we just have to become more diligent and more open and public about how these activities and lesson plans tie into meeting science standards. So that's another big component, is to really use the existing standards to start to insert climate education and environmental education. That's it. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dan and Shino. We're going to turn it over to Fran for a few final announcements. And then just so everyone knows, we're saving some time for the Discovery Tank next door. If you haven't seen it, Hudson River Park Trust has an educator there, Zoe. And you're welcome to grab some snacks and head over and check it out as we mingle and wrap up. But Fran, if you want to join us up top.
Hello, everyone. It's really good to see you all in this room. For those of you I don't know, hello, I'm Fran. And I've been part of EAC for many, many years now. It's been a wonderful ride. And my question to Shino before about like, how do we build community? It's being part of EAC has kept me connected to my peers in like a really wonderful way as a practitioner, to make me feel not alone and to make me feel like I can turn to someone and ask a question and be inspired by someone. I just went to the DEP with our staff yesterday. Robin's team led a beautiful tour. And so it's just this beautiful way to keep learning and integrating with one another. So I hope we can continue to do this, and thank you all for your part in that. We are a volunteer-run nonprofit entering our 50th year of existence, which is amazing. And we run on people power. So depending how we're feeling and if we had breakfast and how our programs went today, like that's EAC, and it's a very small operating system. And so before you leave the Zoom room virtually or this room, I hope I can talk to you, we can all connect, but also we really need your support on new members coming in to the steering committee. We currently have 4 open slots of a group of about 14 of us that will exist total as we all come on board. And on our exit ticket, we have 3 phenomenal new members, hopefully, who will be voted in with your approval. You can read a little bio of, just a yes or no, very simple. We also have an empty slot. So maybe one of you who has been around, it's time to contribute to build this for each other. So just want to say, excited that we're growing. We have term limits. I'm coming to my end soon. And so really we need to keep mixing and keep giving new opportunities to come to the table to support each other. So nominations are coming through. Please take a minute. There'll be a QR code to not only vote, but also to just leave some feedback about thinking about the year ahead. How do you want to come together? Why do you want to come together? Is there something your organization's doing that we can partner with to bring people to so we can see firsthand? Do you want to host a site visit? Do you want to lead a community? Do you want to jump into the beautiful How Things Work conference that's being invented in front of our eyes? And so really just invite you. You are invited to the table. You are at the table. The table's for you. So just want to frame that. And I guess our next steps are just exit ticket, QR code. Great. Thanks, everybody. And thank you, Zoom people.